Over the past 50 years, Climatech has grown and kept pace with the ever-changing HVAC industry, providing our customers with the best knowledge on the most innovative systems and services.
Serving Lorain and western Cuyahoga counties, Climatech is a full-service heating, air conditioning, and ventilation company. A third-generation, family-owned and operated company providing the most up-to-date level of service and installation with the best quality products.
Today, your comfort demands customized solutions utilizing best industry practice combined with high-quality, reliable products that protect you and your home.
The HVAC industry will never stand still. It's a commitment to the environment that we learn, train, and produce next-level efficient products and services.
Partnering with Green Sky Financing and our dedicated customer care software allows us to give you the comfort that you need in your home.
Smart products, smart technicians, and dedication to details drive us to deliver highly effective products into your home today and into the future.
Welcome into week 18 of the Climatech Inc. NFL Prediction Show, the final week of regular season football in the NFL. But of course, as you know, if you've watched the show before in past years, Vince and I are not done. Once the regular season wraps up, we'll still do coverage. We'll still do the prediction show all the way up through the Super Bowl, but we're getting that much closer. We're officially into 2023. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Again, hope you had a safe time with your families, safe travels as well. But Vince, the final week of the regular season, hard to believe that we're already here. Of course, you see the Christmas tree still up for me at this point. It will come down here very shortly, before we have the next show. But again, getting through that holiday season, and that just means we're getting closer and closer to playoff football.
I believe it's week 18 already. I still remember, week 1 and everything, our first week on the split screen YouTube, and it's been a blast. It's funny you mention it because if I have to stare at this Barbie house for one more week, I might jump off a bridge. We are in full get rid of Christmas mode right now, stuff going up in the attic, all that fun stuff. When you have 2 kids, it's just, I'm going to have to buy a bigger house pretty soon. I mean, the slew of gifts from Santa Claus, the aunts and uncles, my cousins, you would think they're the only 2 little girls in the world. It's just insane over here right now. So, yeah, I'm with you. Hopefully by next week 1 of the playoffs, that tree is down. That Barbie castle is history, and it's nothing but football, because I think if I go back in the annals of time, I do not think I've been in the lead or even tied for the lead since that puppy's been up. So if that's the problem, we'll see. But 2 back, 1 week to go. Did the math in my head last night because I'm psychotic like that. The playoffs only have, I believe I calculated 11 games, 4, 4, 2, 1. So 11. So basically we have 1 week left, 16 games, 11 playoff games, 27 to go to try to catch you and make up those 2 points. So, hey, we will see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, you have inched your way slightly closer in the last 2 weeks. It felt like we were hovering right around the 4-point differential for the longest time ever. And, obviously we're going to probably touch more on some of these things as well, but hate to see about, what was going on in that Bills-Bengals game and, the reason why that was postponed. And, of course, thoughts and prayers out for Hamlin and his family and the situation they're going through. And, obviously hope that he ends up being okay in the long run. But, not too often you see a player go through a cardiac arrest, on a field. So hate to see Hamlin go down. It reminds me of the 2020 Euros were played in 2021. Denmark was playing. Christian Eriksen went down in the corner again. Same type of situation. Now he actually, has been back to playing for a while, actually plays for my favorite team, Manchester United at this point. So glad to see he's made a full recovery. Of course, we'll see what happens with Hamlin and if he can pull through, make a good recovery. Hopefully he does. But yeah, you and I, that was one game that we had different, was that Bengals-Bills game. So, it could still be where we split last week, or you could only be down a game. But bigger things, going on with that, and obviously, I think it was shocking and a little bit emotionally shaking for the entire sports world and everybody who was watching. So, but yeah, props to the people who responded there and were able to help him out quickly.
Things there too. So we have a little bit extra time here with only one college game, which I know we're going to get to in a second. As a fan, being 40 years old, I'll be 41, I think 2 weeks from yesterday is my birthday coming up. Here's the thing. I've seen it twice in a sporting event, and it never gets any easier. I was a little kid. And don't quote me on the year because I'm probably wrong, but I think it was either 88 or 89. Me and my brother were watching the Hank Gathers game. Loyola Marymount was playing. Hank Gathers would have probably been the third pick, if not higher, in the NBA draft that year. A hell of a talent, him and Bo Kimball there. And when he collapsed at the foul line and died, I mean, it's a freak accident. No one's expecting it. The game went on. The one thing, and it's funny because I have a wrestling t-shirt on, there's all kinds of wrestling crap behind me. But the one thing with professional wrestling that I will never forgive Vince McMahon for, the second time I saw it, was when Owen Hart died in the middle of a wrestling show, plummeted from the top of the arena, died in front of 20,000 people. Fell from 90 feet up. They wheeled him out in an ambulance. They continued to have the show. There was other matches. There was another 2 hours to go on that show. And to this day, I've interviewed so many professional wrestlers since then, probably a good, maybe 100 of them. And 99% have said they should have stopped the show. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting to with all this is I believe the NFL made the right move last night. ESPN made the right move with how they handled it. I thought very, very classy. It was wild to me because you had texted me. I was on the phone with one of our sponsors, ironically. You texted me with what was going on. I was like, what are you talking about? And then I flipped it on. I'm like, oh, my God. So just a horrible, horrible moment. But I want to applaud both head coaches. I want to applaud the fans of Cincinnati for not booing or doing anything stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody's common sense took over in that situation. So like Cole said, prayers to the family. I've seen it twice as a sports fan. Unfortunately, I've seen it twice as a person. Well, my mom and then a parent, a grandparent of a kid last year. I mean, it's something you never forget. And I do hope that people who are in that situation could really just, like you said, prayers are up for them and, work past it, mentally move past it. It's going to be interesting. Neither one of the games I have this week to talk about, I'll tell you right now, are the Bengals or the Bills, because I have no clue what to tell you. Yeah. There's so much confusion right now. I don't think, we'll take you behind the scenes here in case you haven't already figured it out. We filmed the show on Tuesday night. So most times on Tuesday night. So we don't even know what's going on as far as rescheduling, but I think it's impossible, quite frankly. I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, they already said no for this week.
Right, which makes it impossible because we need to play the game. Mm-hmm. They don't have football doubleheaders.
No.
So it is what it is. And but as Cole, as we said last night with Donovan Mitchell scoring the 71 points, it's nice to have the distraction. Me and Cole are here to hopefully give NFL fans that distraction, thanks in part to Climate Tech, who, again, signed on for another year. So obviously we must be doing something, right, bud?
Yeah, and that's part of the wild thing is on most any given night, that 71 points by Donovan Mitchell would be the biggest talk in the entire sports world, just because he's only the seventh player ever to put up more than 60 points in a game. And that's the next most points since Kobe Bryant's 81 back in 2006. So he had a phenomenal night last night. And most of the talk was not about Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs. Most of the talk was about what was going on in the Bills-Bengals game, rightly so. It's just crazy how in the sports world you can have some nights where everything's just business as usual. There are good performances, but there's nothing that's wild or crazy to talk about. It just so happens on that same night when Donovan Mitchell does that, and it is something that's historic and wild that it comes, directly at that same time. So, it's definitely an interesting situation. I think it was actually handled as well as possible by many people out there, which I have to give them credit for. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people were looking at it and then putting life into perspective, and in that, there's a lot more to life than just sports as well. So I got to give a lot of credit to those who were classy out there, specifically Bengals fans as well, who were in that stadium again. And, there was kind of that hush over the crowd and, super classy. So,
and I mean, I'll say one more thing. I know we have to move on.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I'll say too is I like Joe Buck. I think Joe Buck's phenomenal. He takes a beating from Cleveland fans, because of the 2016 World Series. Get over it. I think he's really good, and I think he handled that with class last night too, because it wasn't like he could just turn off and go home. You know what I mean? They had to do what they had to do. I can only speak from personal experience. When that happened to me last year as a broadcaster, live on air, and something like that goes down, it's easier for me as Vince McKee to close the laptop, shut off the recorder, and just respect the moment. Joe Buck was in a tough situation, and so was Troy Aikman. And I just want to say that I think they both handled that beautifully, like very, very well. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So let's turn to college football. Let's go to the national championship game. Before I do so, again, those semifinal games were excellent. I mean, Michigan and TCU just kept trading punches, going back and forth. And, as close as Michigan got, they never could fully get there against TCU. Impressed with the way that TCU played. I don't think a lot of people thought that really that three down lineman would be able to plug the holes enough against Michigan, but they did a good job of staying pinched in, making sure that the middle was plugged. In general, they did a good job against the run game. Not perfectly, but it was enough to slow it down. And they really forced J.J. McCarthy a little bit more to try and beat them. And McCarthy played a pretty good game overall. He had some mistakes, but ultimately TCU, the Horned Frogs, they got it done against Michigan. And then the nightcap, Ohio State, in many ways, for a lot of that game, outplayed Georgia. And that's a loaded Georgia team, a very good Georgia team. Stetson Bennett, like we talked about, now he put up really good numbers, but like I said, he's a guy who just controls the game, does what he needs to do. And it was more on Ohio State having some issues in the secondary and coverage at times, some blown coverages here and there. Stetson Bennett was able to deliver, do his job, find the open man. And Georgia continued to keep it close and found a way to get back in, take the lead. And ultimately what I said watching the last couple minutes is Georgia had the ball. It looked like Ohio State, there was still about a minute and a half left. I'm like, let them score.
Yeah.
Take time honestly, find a way to just not tackle. Let them go into the end zone. If they're trying to stop short of the end zone, push them into the end zone, drag them into the end zone. Let them score, get as much time with the offense out there on the field. And I don't think they really let them score.
It just
but
did.
The touchdown just happened. They did score, but it came maybe 20 seconds later than I wanted, but nothing to really complain about. Offense goes down for the Ohio State. They drive. And I think they did a great job, and a lot of credit to C.J. Stroud, where I talked about he has athleticism that people don't think about. Is he as mobile and dynamic with his legs as like Bryce Young is? No, he doesn't have that same escapability, but when he wants to run, he can run. Remember, his first touch in college, it was at Michigan State. Justin Fields was taken out of the game because they were blowing out Michigan State. C.J. Stroud was wearing number 14 at the time. He comes in and he keeps it and he takes it to the house. It was like a 48-yard rushing touchdown, his first play in college. So he has the legs and he wasn't afraid to use them this time, which I think he's been afraid to use them pretty much his whole Ohio State career, trying to keep himself from getting hurt. And this time you could tell he really was willing to put his body on the line. And that's what I've been waiting to see from Stroud. He took it to another level. Problem is, after that big first down, they got into field goal range. Ruggles is a pretty accurate kicker. He's had a really good career with Ohio State. He had the game-winning kick against Utah last year. The problem is he doesn't have a big leg like some of the other guys out there. So you want to try to get him closer. I'm surprised they didn't just try to find a way to run the ball, and find a way to pick up 6 more yards, 10 more yards, do what they could on the ground. They had 2 timeouts. Instead, they were really going to the air, and Stroud was having to try to avoid a sack because of the pressure. He did a good job of that. And, of course, disheartening for Ohio State Buckeyes fans. At the same time that the ball dropped, the football sailed wide left, same exact time.
Unbelievable.
I'm sure many wives out there, including my own, were disappointed that we didn't get to watch, performances leading up to the ball dropping and things like that. But I mean, it was simultaneous of that kick. So disheartening, but a lot of credit to the Buckeyes. And you and I have talked about it. I'm going to keep it straightforward here and say this as we're going to touch on, number 3 TCU taking on number 1 Georgia. Huge underdogs for TCU. We talked about it. Whoever won that Ohio State-Georgia game, you and I felt like would go on to win the national championship, because arguably that probably was the national championship game between two of the most talented teams out there. I know Ohio State lost to Michigan, but that's just one of those things where I think when they're playing in a dome, that really helps them out. And something about Michigan right now and that physicality just kind of has a little bit of an upper hand on Ohio State. But I think even though Ohio State's have had troubles with Michigan the last 2 years, doesn't mean that Michigan's more talented. I think that what we saw out there, the Ohio State-Georgia game, those two look like the two better teams out of the 4 teams that played on that given day. And with that being said, I think Georgia takes it to TCU. I think TCU's road ends here. Georgia does what's very difficult. They repeat as national championships. I have them winning 34-14. I don't think TCU's going to do much offensively against Georgia's defense.
Well, I agree with you on the outcome, and I can't go back on my word because I said the same thing you did. Whoever wins that game was going to be my pick. Mm-hmm. But I do disagree with you on the final score. I actually think it's going to be a lot closer than that. I think TCU has proven they belong. I think they've proven they're the 3rd best team in the country. And I do say 3rd because I truly believe that Ohio State would have beat them. You touched on a lot of points there. I'm going to try to get to them quickly because you had a mouthful there about C.J. Stroud, which is 100% true. If you watch his game, he didn't have to be a runner. He didn't have to scramble, right? But when he was in a situation against Georgia where he had to do that, that's exactly what he did. Mm-hmm. Cheap plug for the upcoming draft shows that start in March with Cole, and make sure you watch out for Cole's videos. I love those. I can't wait for them to start. It's a blast to hear how you're going to break down him, Bryce Young, and the rest of the crew. But C.J. Stroud, to me, really balled out. I want to say this, too, because I think Ryan Day took such a beating leading up after that Michigan game. They had some close games. They lost to Michigan again. We both agreed that he was coaching very conservative, right? He didn't do that against Georgia. They went for it on 4th down numerous times. I thought that fake punt was brilliant. If Kirby Smart doesn't get that timeout called, Ohio State might win that game. They might have ended up taking that for a drive. They could have killed the rest of the clock and scored a touchdown for all we know.
That was one of the plays of the game, that timeout.
Huge. The other thing, too, and Cole, you've known me now. We're going on almost 4 years, whatever it's been. You know, I'm not Mr. Excuse. I don't make excuses. I don't believe in excuses. The one thing I thought was BS about that game was Marvin Harrison getting popped. You throw the flag for a targeting call, and then you pick it up. Well, how the hell is the guy hurt for the rest of the game? It's just frustrating because even though that didn't directly result in anything too major, just little things like that throughout the game kind of bugged me. Every single call seemed to go Georgia's way. There was a Stetson Bennett first down that I don't think he got. They said he reached. There was a couple things there. I'm not saying that's why Georgia won. I'm just saying that in a game where Ohio State needed to be perfect and everything to go their way, it just didn't. And they still looked good. I thought it was one of the best Ohio State games I've seen in 2 seasons under Ryan Day, the last 2 seasons. So it's a bummer they lost. It was a fun game to watch. All I'll tell you is fathers out there, never promise your daughter that if they stay up to midnight, they can watch the ball drop, because my oh my was I in a sticky situation at about 11:59. I'll leave it at that. Maggie got her way. We hit record, watched that ball drop, clicked back over, saw Georgia celebrating, and I can't think of a worse way to spend the first 30 seconds of the new year.
Yeah, it was devastating. Last thing I want to say on college football, they have major inconsistencies with targeting, and I think that
Yes.
is the problem. It's simply the targeting rules and them not knowing what is targeting, what's not targeting. I know they're trying to take head injuries out of the game, which is greatly important. That's huge. But I think the NFL is actually doing it the right way, where in many ways where you just see, a 15-yard penalty for unnecessary roughness, and if it was severe enough, they eject the player. We saw it when the Chargers here recently, that big Derwin James hit.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember who they were going up against, but that was just like 2 weeks ago, where Derwin James just popped the player coming at him. So I think that was one of those situations. It was against the Colts, actually. It was against the Colts. I think it was Ashton Dulin. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
it's a
that
national
he
TV
hit.
game. Yep.
Yeah. So they 15-yard penalty. They ejected him. I think that was the move. But here's what I'd say. I think that TCU Michigan game, I would say that was targeting by their rule, by their definition. Crown of the helmet, head down, right into the upper back. I think just because it hit the Michigan player's back and not his head or neck was the only reason they picked up the targeting flag. There should have been targeting probably in the Tulane USC game as well. And then the Ohio State Georgia game, again, there was certainly a conversation for that. I just think they almost kind of stepped back, all the officials in all those games, and three situations that you typically see called as targeting, they didn't. So that's where we're just asking for consistency. Here's my argument. I don't think it was targeting in that Georgia-Ohio State game. But what I can say is this, because defensive back does come in hard on Harrison. Now he turns his head, so it's not crown of the helmet. He turns his head. He was coming in fast. I don't think he left his feet to really launch. Maybe a little bit of shoulder caught there. Me personally, like I said, I think because he tried to avoid the crown of the helmet, I don't think it's targeting, but I would argue that should be one of those unnecessary roughness hit on a defenseless receiver type of a call.
I'll give you that.
Still a 15-yard penalty,
Yep.
just not targeting, but nothing. And it should have been something. And that would be my argument there. So I just think there's inconsistencies that college football, they still have to work out with targeting, because even though they continue to try to make the rule better, have they ever actually figured it out where there's any consistency? No, absolutely not.
Agreed. You knocked it out of the park. It's a good solution to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Like you said, I hate the rule. I don't think people should be injected unless it's unbelievably flagrant and whatever. Yeah, because I mean, you could literally, you could sit there and watch any football game and probably throw the flag 30 times, say, okay, unnecessary roughness or whatever. But I'm telling you right now, and again, I hate to play the old age card with everybody, but man, this stuff's new over the last 10 to 15 years. When I was a kid, oh my God, I mean, quarterbacks would get picked up and slammed, and you wouldn't see a single flag. So as the leagues evolve, both the NFL, NCAA, all that stuff, I understand it, I get it, I agree with a lot of it. But yeah, I think what you said, there's a big difference between a 15-yard unnecessary roughness, whatever, compared to targeting. I agree.
Yeah, and an ejection. So maybe there's even a tier system. I know there have been people like Joel Klatt and others out there who have talked about maybe a tier system. Maybe that would help, where they have different levels of targeting, where one's just a 15-yard penalty, no ejection. The next one's an ejection, with the 15-yard penalty. I don't know what the solution is. They'd have to figure it out, but it has to get better, because I think it affects too many big games.
All right. Listen, man. We'll figure out that tier system once we figure out the high school football playoffs of private schools and public schools and the different tiers. And we'll have a sit-down meeting about all of it.
Hey, we need to talk that over, because I really think you can still get 7 divisions out of that if you split things up. I'm serious. We could sit down and talk about that, but I think you honestly have enough teams out there that can make 3 divisions of private, 4 divisions of public. But
I was at a girls' basketball game last week, and that subject came up, and I thought of you right away. I'm like, man, I wish he was here, because the guy was going off. And he was saying a lot of the things you say. I'm like, man, I'm like, Cole would love this conversation right now.
You
We're gonna have a
know,
show called The Show Beyond the Show, or The Show Behind the Show, or Not Enough Time, maybe later show, because if you guys knew some of the crap that he and I talked about off air, you would just love it.
yeah,
NFL picks.
and some of the strategizing and theories as well. Let's move to the NFL here. Again, I am still just up 2 games, Vince, game by game the last 2 weeks, closing the gap a little bit. We're going to jump to the marquee matchup here first, and this is a big one. This decides a pretty poor division in the AFC South, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, who've turned it on in the second half of the season with their new head coach, Doug Peterson, their young talent, going up against the Tennessee Titans, who will be without Ryan Tannehill. Again, it was Malik Willis, who they drafted. He had an opportunity to start or two throughout the season. And then Josh Dobbs, makes his way down there after being the backup for the Browns for Jacoby Brissett, and then was released. Actually, ended up on the practice squad for the Detroit Lions. Signed about 2 weeks ago with the Tennessee Titans, and now he is starting his second game in a row for the Tennessee Titans. Vince, I feel like I know which direction you're going. Do the Jaguars pull off the winning the division and make it to the playoffs after that second half of the year? Or do the Titans manage to sneak one out?
Every time the Titans are in a close game over the years, I pick the Titans. Not this time. I'm finally breaking the streak. I'm tired of gambling on Tennessee and losing. It's gotten old. We're going with the Jacksonville. Here's the thing, guys. I crunched some numerals. So I was looking at this. Not only is Jacksonville red hot, they have the better record. They're at home, all that good stuff. They have actually outscored their opponents this year. They're 8-8, but they've outscored their opponents by 50 points. Mm-hmm. That's a nice chunk. When you have a 0-win differential, you're dead even 500, and to be up 50 points in the diff, that's serious stuff. On the other hand, Tennessee has been outscored by 57 points, and they've not, even when they're healthy, 100% healthy with Ryan Tannehill and everybody else, they can't seem to produce. That's number one. Number two, also to me, as much as I love Derrick Henry, he can't do it by himself anymore. I don't know. It's just frustrating to me. How could a guy walk off the street, the privilege of the practice squad of Detroit after not playing in Cleveland? You're telling me this guy couldn't have beat Jacoby Brissett out for the job, but now he's going to lead the Tennessee Titans to the playoffs? I don't know. We'll see. I never thought I'd pick against Mike Vrabel. I really didn't. I love Henry. I love Vrabel. This is killing me not to pick the Titans, but I'm just going to play the hot hand here. I like that point diff. We're going to go with Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Vrabel's a great coach. Henry's a great running back. Although, he didn't play last week, we'll see. I'm sure they're going to try to get him out there. So I really like Roger McCreary. You know that from the cornerback who played at Auburn. He's a rookie for the Titans. He was my number one cornerback. And I think he has a lot of potential. So they have some good pieces there. I think there's some other guys I haven't even mentioned at this point. But I like a lot of what the Titans have on that roster. But when Tannehill's not in and playing right now, and the way they've started to turn in the second half of the year, it's concerning for the Titans this season. And with that being said, I think the Jaguars are red hot. Their defense has really started to step up. Their offense has been performing better and better. I mean, Evan Ingram popping off at tight end. Zay Jones has had some big weeks at wide receiver. Travis Etienne starting to really hit his stride. Everybody is coming into form at the right time, and that's why the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win this game. And this isn't even going to be a close game, in my opinion. As much as I like Dobbs, and I will say something else about him in a moment, I don't think they're going to be able to do enough against the Jaguars defense, who's been generating pressure against other teams. I mean, heck, they came out and beat the Cowboys, who've had a pretty good year. And that was courtesy of a pick six at the end of the game as well. I have the Jags winning this one 27-10. I don't think it's going to be really that close. Wow. I think they, like I said, they've hit their stride. Do I think they'll do anything in the postseason? No. But I think they win this one at home, which is huge for them. It's huge for Trevor Lawrence and his confidence as well for the future. They're piecing things together nicely. Last thing I want to say on Dobbs, though. I think Jacoby Brissett was the perfect guy to stand in for Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns. And we'll, of course, touch on the Browns a little bit more later. But I want to say this. Brissett and Watson are very different players. So you have to play very different playbooks as well. It's different styles of how that offense plays. So I think, a lot of those programs that really do well, a lot of those organizations that have really good offenses, they have backups that have similar playing styles to their starting quarterback, so they don't have to really change much with the playbook. As much as I appreciate Jacoby Brissett, I love his personality. I think he's perfect for what he did this year, but I don't think he's the backup quarterback for the future. I think what I've seen out of Josh Dobbs in the preseason, what I saw out of him, just as a backup, and what I've seen out of him with Tennessee, I know he has mobility. I think there's plenty of potential. I think he's a smart quarterback. I'd maybe look to bring him back to Cleveland as the backup for Watson next year and in future years, because they have similarities in playing style, and I think he correlates better to Watson's game than what Brissett does. So that's at least something interesting enough.
Imagine the public outcry of when Watson came back. They cut Brissett. Everybody was so upset to begin with, oh my God, this guy was so good for you. If they would have cut him and you know what, now that Watson's back, because I agree with everything you just said. With everything that just came out of your mouth, I would have loved it. I would have been like, yep, 2 thumbs up, great idea. But just the whole public nightmare would be hysterical.
Right.
We'll see how it plays out. I would have loved that though, personally.
Right. So we're both on the same page with Jacksonville. We're both going with them. Let's see if we're on the same page with Sunday Night Football. 2 teams that are also pretty even. Again, that is the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. And, of course, this one at Lambeau. The Packers, they're starting to hit their stride at a decent time as well. I mean, they blew out the Vikings, who have to be the biggest frauds with their record. Great record, but
in Philadelphia,
are they going to win a Super Bowl? I don't think so.
I'm shocked.
But I'm gonna say, as much as I would prefer, I think, to see the Lions win here, and I think, again, that young team's had a lot of good things going their way this season. It being in Wisconsin, I think that's just going to be an advantage for Green Bay, and I'm going with the Packers here, 31-20.
Not getting many points this week. So I also have the Packers. My reasoning was this, and Cole, you've never been shy about correcting me if I'm wrong, but if I understand this correctly, if the Seahawks beat the Rams, which I think that they will, and I'm picking Seattle, that automatically eliminates the Lions win, lose, or draw, correct?
Yeah, it should.
Okay. So Seattle plays, they'll win, they'll beat the Rams, which means that game's now meaningless for the Lions. I think the Packers win. I'll say this, though, when we were texting the other day about this, I actually think the Lions have a brighter long-term future right now than Green Bay. There's free agency, there's the draft, we'll see what happens. Green Bay, I don't think is even that good, but they're at home, they'll have more to play for, a win in their in mentality. Rodgers is pissed. He hates losing to the Lions. He said so earlier this season. That's one of the reasons you're up by 2 games, by the way. Go back and look. You had the Lions. I had the Packers the last time they played. The Lions were your upset pick, and they came through in the clutch for you. And that kind of sparked their hot streak. I think Green Bay has a receipt for them, and they pull it out. But now that we've both picked Green Bay, and it doesn't really matter, now I might actually have to pull for the Seahawks to lose and pull for the Lions to win, because that would be kind of fun to see Detroit in the playoffs. But I do agree with you. I just don't see any of that happening. We'll see.
Yeah. Who knows? A dome team also – going up, I'm not sure what the weather's actually going to be at this point, but, it's going to be colder than what it would be in the dome. So that's at least something to keep in mind as well. As we move to our upset picks, here's the problem. I know we're getting short on time, but, I was really tempted to say that the Patriots would be my upset pick over the Bills just because of what's going on. But Here's the thing. It's going to be one of 2 tails, and I don't know which it would be with the Bills when they actually play their game against the Patriots. They want that number 1 seed in the bye, so they might come out with just intensity and absolutely blow the doors off of New England, or they could come out still shaken up from what just happened and the Patriots catch them. I honestly have no clue what's going to happen there, so I steered away from that game as much as I actually thought about taking the Patriots. I went with a little bit more of a safe route. The Buccaneers are actually the underdogs against the Atlanta Falcons. I like what the Falcons are doing there. Surprising enough, but the Falcons are at home in this game. And I think Desmond Ritter's showing some good things. I think they have some things to build on. But I think the Buccaneers right now, again, they just need they're going to make it into the postseason here. They clinched, they're going to try to get it rolling. I think they're going to probably get this win against the Falcons.
Okay, so two things there. I took Atlanta just because I feel, even though the head coach of Tampa Bay said they weren't going to do it, I think he does pull his starters at halftime. I know he says he's going to start Tom Brady and Mike Evans and all that, but with as banged up as Tampa Bay's been this season, I don't trust it for them to play that long. Atlanta, I hope, I pray, I think, wants to finish the season on a hot streak. Mm-hmm. As I texted you earlier today, this is the hardest week of the year to pick. This week and the first week. Factor in the nightmare of last night with the Bengals and Buffalo. So much is already undecided to begin with. I have no clue, Cincinnati and Buffalo both, like what's going to happen there. Do they have anything to play for? What time is the game going to be played? That depends on how many starters play and how long. It's a crazy week. I actually went with this, and I had to go back and look. I think this is the first time in 18 weeks I've ever picked this team. I'm taking Houston. The fact they're a 2.5 underdog. All right. So here's my note here. I said Houston and the Colts tied week 1, right? The Colts, to me, are clearly tanking and they're not healthy. While even if the Texans win and the Bears lose, I think that gives Chicago the first overall pick, which is kind of crazy because I don't think they're the worst team in the league. But if I read this correctly, and I think that I did, because the Texans would have a better winning percentage or something because of that tie. So even though they had both 3 wins, they'd get it. So then I reasoned, well, I still don't think the Texans are going to tank because I don't think they want the embarrassment of picking number 1 yet again. Plus, they don't need a number 1 pick to get a quarterback because if the Bears pick first, they're not going to take a quarterback. The Texans could still do that at number 2. All that aside, though, Colts suck. Man, oh man, disappointing. Like, I was like, me and Cole both had a win in the division, before the season started. We had them going deep. I don't know what the hell happened there. So they're done. I don't think Saturday's coming back. So that's my upset pick. I think it's like a 3.5 point spread or something. I look long and hard at that Tampa Bay game as well, though. I think that's going to be very dicey there. But we'll see. So there's 2, and interested here with Cleveland.
Yeah, and I honestly was tempted to take the Texans as well, but I had the Colts 20-17. A pair of bads. I think it's going to be just a close game. Who knows? They could tie again. Honestly, they tied first week of the season, so could be their second tie this year. Last thing, the Browns trying to play spoiler for the Steelers, who honestly, a team that has not looked good this year, honestly, has looked like maybe a bottom third level team. But hey, good coaching, the mentality in that organization, they managed to find wins somehow, even in games and situations where you don't really expect them to win. And that's how they're sitting 500 right now. So this one's hard to pick this game because I think the Browns still have more talent on that team. I mean, I felt like they took it to the Steelers the first time they played earlier in the year in some ways. A lot of that game they dominated. At Pittsburgh has been difficult for Cleveland. That's why it's tough to take the Browns because they struggle, especially when it's last week of the season there. I'm going to do it, though. I'm just going to say that the Browns have really nothing to play for right now aside from pride and trying to piece things together for next year. I just think that I saw too many good things out of Deshaun Watson in that second half against Washington. I think there's good things we're seeing there. At least there's guys who want to fight for their jobs. I think they play upset and play spoiler against the Steelers. I have them winning a close one, 23-20.
Well, we have our 3 games different because I'm taking Pittsburgh. Again, a little hand-in-hand cheat sheet here. I have Pittsburgh has more to play for. The Browns are banged up. And all that aside, go back and look at the schedule, guys. The Browns have not really played 2 back-to-back complete games in a row. You could say, oh, well, they beat Tampa Bay and the Houston Texans back-to-back. That is true. But the Houston Texans game was all defense for the Browns and special teams. Kills me to do it. Playing the streak, 20 straight seasons, does not tell a lie. I love the culture. I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hate the Baltimore Ravens. But the one thing I have to say about the Steelers, they have a good culture.
Yeah.
And when someone's a troublemaker, like Antonio Brown, they get rid of him. I mean, that's the thing with Pittsburgh. Browns fans can hate him all they want. Go for it. I don't care. The culture there is unbelievable. Mike Tomlin has taken a pile of crap of a roster numerous times already and produced winning records. This is a guy who had a winning record with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, for God's sake. I'm not going to bet against the guy. So for you, keep the score at home. Cole, Colts, me, Texans. Cole, Browns, me, Steelers. Cole, I know we have a third. What was the third different? Tampa Bay. So Cole, Tampa Bay, Vince, Atlanta. Those are the 3 you know about. Check out the article to see the full slate of picks and predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to keonsports.com. And last thing I want to say here as we wrap this up, of course, a lot more coming on the Climate Tech Inc. NFL prediction show when we get to the postseason. Last thing I want to say, though, Cleveland Browns, and this is how I'm going to wrap up the show. The Cleveland Browns, they're at a point where, hey, you have Watson. You're really looking at, with some of your talent, a 3 to 4 year window. You need to be willing to win at all costs, even if that's making unpopular decisions. Again, props to you, Vince, again, for putting out a great story. Again, had some love, had some hate, and that's okay. You know, it's one of those things where the Browns organization, they have to do whatever, it takes to win games. And that's what I'm going to say. Of course, you and I will talk a lot more about that here in the offseason as the draft also approaches. Everybody out there, have a great night. Enjoy this weekend of football.
Climate Tech is a full-service company. We install as well as service both residential and commercial products. We service furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, boilers, mini split systems, tankless hot water. We've got a good group of technicians that have been developed into a company culture that delivers a good degree of confidence to the customer and gives us a good product output. They want to take care of the customer and make sure that the customer is satisfied with their service. And when you've got non-stressed employees at your home, you're going to get a greater result from that service call or from that installation. Our customer needs, comfort, and health are of utmost importance, and we strive to provide that to every customer within their budget. As we continue to grow, we remain focused on maintaining our high level of customer satisfaction. When you hire Climate Tech, you're hiring a whole team of experts that have been in the business well over 80 years. If you're looking for a new install, if you're looking for just maintenance on your equipment, we are the company of your choice.